I'll call the Thursday, August 29th, 2024 meeting of the Cumberland Planning Board to order. Roll call. Ms. Rashek.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Mr. Scown.
Here.
Mr. Bush.
Here.
Ms. Reese is absent. Mr. D'Ambrosia is absent. And Mr. Costa is absent. And the chair is present. Okay. Approval of the planning board minutes of June 27th, 2024. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Butler, second by
You got it now? Okay. So as I was saying, 8:45, we turn into pumpkins. So the reason I put this, what I'm going to do in the future for minor subdivisions and minor land development, because they're no longer being reviewed by the planning board, I'm just going to report what projects that are now being delegated to the planning department and what we're approving. So this was a minor subdivision, one lot. They subdivided into 2 lots. It was a 4-acre parcel. This is at the southeast corner of West Rentham Road and Tower Hill. So they subdivided 1 into 2 acres each. There were no waivers or variances. It was pretty straightforward. So if anyone has any questions.
Board have any questions? Okay, thank you. Item number 4, zoning board of review recommendation. Owner applicant Robert Lanoy, location 279 Abbott Run Valley Road, Assessors Plat 26, lot 237. Zoning is R1 with public water but no sewer. The applicant requests a variance to build an in-ground pool beyond the front plane of the dwelling. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the petition you have states that the relief needed is from the front yard setback, but that's not the case for this project since this is a substandard lot by area, so they're entitled to proportional setbacks under the new state statute. So what they do need relief for is to place an in-ground pool beyond the front plane of the house. Now, in practical matter, the house has one front door, but for zoning, because this is a corner lot, what matters is that the property has 2 front yards, which are the 2 that face the street. So those 2 are considered the front yards. So as shown on the site plan, the applicant is constrained due to the existing leach field and the septic system. So the proposed pool location, which will have a fence around it, is really the only practical place to build it. So we find this application to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we're recommending a favorable recommendation to the zoning board.
Does the board have any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we send a recommendation to the zoning board of review that the application is consistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan and include Mr. Modica's memo of August 22nd, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Scown. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Chair votes yes. Motion carries. The next item is item number 5. It's a public meeting. Owner applicant Cumberland Beagle Club, project name Cumberland Beagle Club Clubhouse, location 389, 425, 385, and 391, Nate Whipple Highway. Assessors Plat 40, lots 5, 7, 8, and 43. Zoning is A2 with public water and no sewer. Mr. Modica.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
before he starts, if I may.
Yes.
You have seen this project before, 2018? So in 2018, you approved some kind of a development, minor land development plan review, and it went to the zoning board for a special use permit, and it was granted. Unfortunately, the special use permit expired.
Okay.
So it's here before you because we changed the zoning, as you remember, earlier this year, where special use permits all need this specific and objective criteria. So many of our special use permit type uses were deleted. So for this particular project, because Beagle Club is so unique, we thought the best way to handle this was to give it its own zone, similar to Martin Street, because it's got a lot of different uses that it made sense to do kind of an overlay district. So I just wanted to start with that. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Modica.
Sure. So the property's about 95 acres, consists of 4 lots. The Beagle Club was established just after World War II. It includes a shooting and archery ranges. The existing clubhouse was built in 1962. And this project is to build a new clubhouse on the property, along with an infiltration basin and a septic system. They have their DEM permits in hand for the septic, and they have a DEM letter that says that wetlands will not be impacted by the project. They are in an A2 zone, and the uses of the property as currently used by a nonprofit service organization and for recreational use, as Ms. Morris said, they're not allowed in this zone. They're not allowed in agricultural zones. So these are pre-existing non-conforming uses. So what they would be doing is expanding non-conforming uses. And one way to bring the property into conformance could be to rezone it, but that would mean making this a commercial zone where those uses are allowed. So in this rural area, that would not be the best approach. So the overlay zone is a better way to achieve that, to bring the current uses into conformance, which are listed as service organization, arts education, outdoor rec, and indoor recreation. In terms of the parking, on the ordinance you have has that section highlighted. We didn't catch that in time, but we are specifying 40 parking spaces for the overlay district because that's what they presently have. Those are the paved parking spaces that they have by the existing clubhouse. There will be accommodations for parking at the new clubhouse. It's going to be in grassy or gravel areas. There'll be no impervious surface, so which is much better than laying down asphalt and creating impervious cover. So actually, in fact, when they have large events, that the property can accommodate 100 cars or more. So there's plenty of room for people to visit the property. So overall, we're recommending a favorable recommendation to the town council for the ordinance on the overlay zone and approval of formal development plan review for the project.
Does the board have any questions? Mr. McDonald?
I missed it, can I just have the, what's highlighted, the parking again, please? What did you say about that?
We're going to put 40 spaces are required.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant, representative of the applicant and the builder are here, so if you have any specific questions about operations or the site, they may be able to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions for Mr. Modica? I do recall the original application, because when I saw this, I said, gee, I remember, and then, well, a couple of years ago at least, yeah. So I do recall the original application. So if the applicant is present and they just want to give us a brief overview, that'd be fine with us.
How are you? My name is Matt Alves, Vice President of the Cumberland Beagle Club. We did come in front of you guys in 2019 for a special use permit, which was granted at that time. COVID happened. My board of directors operates slower than the rules of justice, so here we are. But so we're basically looking to put a new clubhouse in, and the clubhouse would just consist of us running our general functions, some educational stuff. We do hunter safety for the state of Rhode Island, that type of stuff, and getting us out of our multi-use. We're using our clubhouse now for, it's an indoor firing range in the clubhouse, so just kind of separating the two. I know it's a little bit unique because our clubhouse is on one piece of property and the septic's on the other. The state did grant us permission to, put those two together. So I'll take any questions you guys have. We're kind of transitioning more to a social type event type thing than just, firearms, just because of the, nature that we're in.
So the only thing that came to mind was the indoor firing range.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that it's going to stay where it is.
That will stay as
And
it
there's-
is.
And there's no intent to use the new structure at all for an indoor firing range?
No, not at all. It will be solely just for, functions and meetings and stuff like that.
Okay. Board have any other questions? That's easy. Couldn't be
That's
any
why I
easier?
like to keep it for you guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. I appreciate your time.
Yep. With that being said, this is a public meeting, so as such, if there's anybody in the audience that have any questions regarding this proposal, please come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record. I see no one. Mr. Modica, is there anyone in the queue? No one in the queue, okay. Pleasure of the board.
Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to the Cumberland Beagle Club that we approve the formal development plan review as it is consistent with the provisions of the land development and subdivision regulations based on the findings in Mr. Modica's memo to the planning board dated August 22nd, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Bush. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Chair votes yes. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, one more motion. Make a motion in regards to the Cumberland Beagle Club that we send a favorable recommendation of the town council as the proposed zoning ordinance amendment is consistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan as outlined in Mr. Modica's memo dated August 22nd, 2024.
Okay, and might as well get a second on that one also.
Second.
Second by Mr. Scown. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Chair votes yes. Motion carries. You're good to go? Good luck. Okay. Town council recommend, do you want to do that one or wait and just go, because I see it here twice. Oh, no, all right, never mind. Took care of that, okay. Item number 6, public hearing, major land development, master plan. Owner applicant, the Narragansett Electric Company. Project name, Rhode Island Energy Training Center. Location, 1595 Mendon Road. 96 Scott Road, 38 Scott Road, Assessors Plat 39, lots 24, 27, and 64. Zoning is I-1 with public water and public sewer. The applicant requests master plan approval to expand the existing Rhode Island Energy facility by constructing a worker training center. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be brief because I think the applicant, they may have a presentation on the project, but this site, formerly known as National Grid, includes 4 parcels owned by Rhode Island Energy. The proposed worker training center will be on 3 of those parcels that total about 59 acres. This facility will provide simulated training for gas and electrical installation and repairs. Some barbed wire fencing within the facility, within the gas and electrical areas will need town council approval. A separate and independent part of this project is to build a parking lot near the office buildings, and the planning board will see that at a later time. This project doesn't need any waivers or variances, but the main issues that we discussed at the technical review committee meeting that the applicant will be addressing at preliminary plan includes drainage and stormwater management because there'll be much more impervious cover, and we want the extra runoff to be contained. So they'll be working with the Public Works Director on that. Related to that, about 7.5 acres will be cleared. So we're looking for a landscape plan that will show as much new tree planting and landscaping as possible. We'll also be looking for a lighting plan to ensure that only the facility is lit and not any neighbor's property. So at this master plan stage, we find the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan, especially because this property is called out for future economic development, and we recommend approval of the application.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Modica? Hearing none, we'll hear from the applicant.
Hi, good evening. George Watson here with representatives from GZA, We have Ryan DePonte and Nicholas Damigella? Damigella, okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you pick that up, Chris? The audio? Because I know the mic's really low. You got it? Okay, thank you.
So Ryan and Nick will give a more detailed description of the premises and what's going on. I'm just giving a little bit of a background. Again, George Watson, outside siding counsel for the Narragansett Electric Company. This project is intended to replace the current facilities that are owned by National Grid in Millbury, Massachusetts. With the separation of the ownership of the Narragansett Electric Company from National Grid to now PPL, those premises, those training facilities are no longer available, or they will no longer be available in the near future. So the company now has to build its own facilities in Rhode Island. And so this property was selected to be the host for these facilities. And so Nick and Ryan can give a more detailed description of what's being built. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, doing Ryan DuPont with DAPONTE with GZA, or a civil engineer working for Rhode Island Energy on this project. The outdoor training facility is proposed to be added on to the currently in development indoor training facility that is being constructed in buildings A and B on the property. And the outdoor training facility it's broken up into 3 general areas for 3 different types of training. There's an area for electrical operations training, an area for gas operations training, and an area for commercial drivers training. The area for electrical operations training will primarily focus on things like pole climbing, how to make a service connection to a house, how to install meters, how to take meter readings. In the electrical training area, there will be a mock substation for practice of substation operations. That portion will not be energized, so the substation will have all the components of a substation. However, there'll be no live power to the substation. Other areas of the electrical yard will have live power, where they're working on distribution down like a roadway, setting up pole transformers, stripping down pole transformers, and making service type connections. The buildings they'll be practicing these connections on are sort of like sheds, basically on a concrete pad. It'll be a shed to simulate a house. They're not going to have an actual house there, but a little shed to practice these types of work on. In the gas area, similar type training exercises. They'll have an area to practice excavations, so they'll be able to take a backhoe, dig a pit, backfill the pit. They'll have gas leak testing, which will primarily be done with compressed air. There'll be sections that they occasionally push gas into, but most of the training's done with compressed air for safety purposes. Same thing, they'll practice making a gas connection into a house, installing gas meters, and things like that. There's also an area for underground electrical, where they'll practice cable pulling in manholes, and those types of activities. So anything that Rhode Island Energy performs in their day-to-day service operations, there'd be an area to practice and train crews for that. And the CDL area is essentially a parking lot. The parking lot already exists on site. It'll be restriped. There's a DOT standard for how the lot is to be striped, and you practice making certain moves with a truck and a trailer, basically backing up to a certain space, pulling forward. I don't know all the technicalities of it, but it's a DOT mandated type procedure. The facility will have two restrooms, which will be sort of outbuildings, one in the gas area, one in the electric area. Those restrooms will connect to the existing sewer and water service for the buildings. Will branch off of the main that heads down the existing site driveway and connect existing public water and sewer. The existing electric, power, communications, all that already meets the facility will be extended and distributed throughout the facility along with gas. A major concern, obviously, a technical review is stormwater. So this project will require stormwater permitting through the Department of Environmental Management. We are aware of the ongoing issues of the Scott Road in particular, and we're going to pay special consideration to that in our design. So that design has not been completed, but it's in progress. And as you can see on the master plan, there's significant stormwater detention areas planned for in the development. And those will be designed, they'll be submitted to DEM, and we're, of course, willing to work with the Public Works Department as well once we've completed that design. As Glenn had said, the lighting will be dark sky compliant. There'll be a lighting plan provided at preliminary.
Can you shed some light on the first, the construction hours and then the hours of operation?
Good question. All right, construction hours will primarily be general union construction hours, which are 7 to 3. They may extend to 7 to 5, but there's no plans for night construction, after hours construction, anything like that. In this facility, we are aware that specifically the electric yard is adjacent to a residential neighborhood. And then same thing, the hours of operation for the facility will be Monday through Friday, 7 to 3.
Does the board have any questions? Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. This is from a letter that was sent in by an abutter, a resident. And the lighting, will the lighting, once the facility is completed, will that affect, will it be splay over into the residential areas?
The plan is to make sure that we do not extend lighting off the property line.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So this is master plan, right? So I would expect that you'd be submitting a photometric plan with preliminary, George?
I believe my answer has to be yes.
Well, I mean, if you want to, it's a major land development, so I think that's appropriate.
It's one of the conditions that Glenn put in his.
Yeah, I didn't read that, but I'm just kind of telling the attorney that that's probably appropriate for,
Right, I mean, right now, we are specing dark sky compliant.
Right.
But we can also do the photometric.
yeah, and then that'll allay your concerns about spillage over, okay?
Okay, I just have one more. They're not mine, they're a resident. Just one other. The noise level when operational, I know it's a training site. Is that going to be an issue for residents?
So I would expect probably the loudest things in training would be a truck backup alarm in the CDL area or a backhoe running in the excavation area. We did, in the organization of the yard, put the electrical training closest to the residential areas. And one of the reasons for that is that's the quietest piece of training. Essentially in that area, it's a bucket truck would probably be the largest piece of equipment that operates. It's a lot of, like I said, pole climbing is really no equipment, just a person going up and down a pole. The meters are the same thing. Substation, there'd be no heavy equipment operating, and that equipment won't be energized, so it won't even have like a generator hum or anything like that on the substation. So there was some consideration given in terms of the site organization to try to put the quietest operations closest to the residential neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Based on some of your commentary, I'm sure you're aware of the concerns that the neighbor has, because some of your commentary sort of kind of alludes to that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we've spoke to some of the neighbors at a public kind of open house session.
One thing that comes to mind is there an intention to use security cameras at any time for, especially during the night, to make sure nobody's, I understand you're going to put fencing in barbed wire, which is another question I have. But would security cameras be something that you might be thinking about?
Okay, so there might be one in each area.
Okay.
The buildings are already very secure too.
Yeah.
Because they have operations going on
Right.
in there, so it's a pretty secure site with gated access. But as far as, it sounds like there'll be at least one camera for each training area.
Okay. And of course, there's mention of barbed wire, and can you walk me through this? Because I thought at one time, barbed wire fences was a no-no. I mean, but given the context of what's being proposed here, you need to have this site as secure as possible, so nobody, jumps a fence to get over in there at any point in time.
Right, so the site is already secured by a perimeter fence, I believe it's 9 feet tall. It's 8-foot panels with a foot of barbed wire. That's 3 strands oriented, parallel to the ground. In general, barbed wire is a requirement for all the, it's like electric substations
Oh, okay.
throughout the state. So it's, I've been before the town councils a few times now to get the required relief for that. So the plan is to use the same fence. I'm not sure the height. It's going to be 9 feet or 8 feet.
Yeah, I think the intent is probably to match what's existing, but we'd have to double check that.
But the same idea of having a mesh panel topped with 3 rows of barbed wire to secure the facilities on the inside as well.
Yeah. Well, I agree, it's very important, but I'm sure that if I wanted to fence in my property and I wanted to put barbed wire, I'm sure that that would be an absolute no-no, and I would never ever get a permit, but
Well, you just have to
given the
go to your town
circumstances,
council.
I thought you could walk, yeah. I thought you could walk us through there with the logistics of it and so on, and what you have to go through for permitting and so on.
Okay, yeah, so we still need to go back. We will, in addition to completing this multi-phase process, we have to go to the town council for approval for the additional fence.
Okay.
We already have it for the existing fence. In fact, I was there maybe 2 or 3 years ago because there was a section of the fence around the proposed CDL training parking lot that was incomplete. We just had a gap in the fence. So we went back to get the required approval to close that gap with barbed wire fence.
Well, it makes an awful lot of sense around any kind of electrical facility that, given today's world, that you got to protect that as much as you can. The other thing that I have is because you're one of your training operations is to excavate a trench and backfill it and so on. I'm assuming that and I don't know and I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job or anything, that part of that would also include erosion control, but, as the fact that you're going to disturb the ground, you're also, obviously, you're going to backfill it, you're going to compact it and so on and so forth. And can you walk me through that?
Yeah, so as part of the operation, I think, and specifically for that training module, and we'll have to include a program for best management practices for sediment and erosion control to be employed during active excavation. And it's probably a good training module anyway, since they should need to employ those types of devices when they're excavating in the field anyway. But that will be part of the operation maintenance plan for the site because it would also be a problem. There'll be stormwater best management practices down gradient of the excavation area, but when we're designing them, we would prefer not to have tons of sediment running into them. It will cause the company to have to perform higher maintenance. So there'll be some type of standard operating procedure to help prevent that.
So what I was thinking is during the training process, not the construction part of it, because that's a given that you're going to have to put erosion control measures in place. But the idea of incorporating that as part of your excavating in practicing backfilling trenches and so on, that was kind of where I was going with that. Not that I was trying to go, I mean, I understand that when under construction, it's a different game. I have no more questions. Does anybody else on the board have any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
On page 3 of the drawings, I'm looking, that's the electrical training facility to the right side, not the... Is that it? Yeah. I was just wondering, do you know approximately how close the roadways in that training facility or to the rear lot lines of the homes, just to the south? With the cul-de-sac there, right?
Approximately 120 feet.
Okay. Okay. And one other thing, this had nothing to do with the project, Mr. Modic, I was just wondering about the letter that the neighbor had sent in as far as the poor quality of the road repair. Does Rhode Island Energy have any responsibility for that, or is that?
I can shed some light on that. So RIDOT is planning to repave the road. So in advance of the repaving, the company has gone in to replace the gas line that's in there. And so the gas line's getting replaced. I think they're near completing, or near the finishing point for that. And then RIDOT's going to come in after us to repave it.
That's exactly what I think, I thought what was going on, is, because the neighbor wrote a letter and tried to get in contact with Rhode Island Energy, and I'm saying to myself, well, RIDOT's probably the one that's driving everything, because they got the bridge work there, and they're gonna be doing paving, and obviously what happens is you can't open up the road once you've paved over it, so I said it makes a tremendous amount of sense for all utilities that need to be either upgraded or incorporated be done prior to paving. So, I mean, it's like the responsibility, I mean, it's very difficult to patch and not expect to have issues with the patchwork and so on. But knowing that when everything is all said and done, it's going to be completely paved. So you just kind of have to put up with some of the inconvenience there is. I drive that area, not all the time, but, you know, frequently enough. And yeah, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but nevertheless, that's, you know, that's something you have to live with when you're working with construction and you have certain phases, and you can't put the cart before the house, you can't pave it before you get the utilities, and so I understand. But that's, again, that's why I was thinking that RIDOT is kind of, you know, maybe, in my mind, more central to this work that's going on Mendon Road than even the utilities, because you got to do your work first before they can, you know, finish up.
Yeah, I think it's a joint effort. It's,
Yeah.
you know, oftentimes what will happen is RIDOT will communicate with the utility company, noting that they're going to repave. Is there anything you want to do before we do it? And so I think that may have been the driving force here, but what I can say for sure is that the current state of the road is temporary because it will be repaved.
Right.
I don't know what the repaving schedule is, that's RIDOT, but this work was being done so that it was completed before RIDOT repaved.
Well, having a background in construction, and I used to work for the DOT, I kind of know, you know, kind of what the procedures are and the steps are. But for the people who are in the audience and who may be watching virtually, kind of give them a little clearer picture as to why things are the way they are. And to me, it's just something that you have to kind of live with in the short run before you can get the final product done. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, no, wait a minute. Procedure is, the staff gives us a report, then the applicant comes and makes their presentation, and then I open up the floor and so on. So, and then once all those questions have been asked or comments made, then I'll open up the floor. So, sir, absolutely, yes. If you have any questions or comments, please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record, and tell us what you want to know.
Hello. My name is Simon Bronstein. I live at 54 Scott Road. That's lot 130. I think I share the most land that's adjacent to this project. Oh, no, I'm not lot 130. Anyway.
Close enough.
Close enough. Yeah, so I've spent about $5,000 last year on drainage in my basement, putting in a French drain, and I'm hoping that when I came here, I would hear like a lot of very sort of solid plans for what was going to be done to mitigate the drainage issues that are on Scott Road. And it sounds like the studies are still in progress, which concerns me. I don't know how we can have a master plan if we don't know how the drainage is going to be affected. I think my primary concern is that, and then I think I represent a couple of residents that are on Mendon Road and Scott Road who wanted me to come here and ask questions for them. And our big question is, like, we need to see a lot of the stuff that affects residents in writing, a lot of the sort of noise and light rules that the construction crew intends to follow. We'd like to see them in writing, because I think what's happened to a number of residents on Mendon Road is that they, it took a long time for the company to get back to them, and they were kind of navigating sort of like a customer service maze in order to get any sort of like help. And it were like days where they couldn't sleep.
So in that question, with that question, always give the DOT a call too when it has anything to do, basically in the area of Mendon Road and what's going on there and so on.
Sure.
Because they're a party to it. The town, actually, if it's not a town operation, then they can certainly help you, but the pros from Dover are the people you need to contact, and that would be. And I understand the frustration that you have with National Grid, because I've had issues myself regarding some drainage on a piece of land that I own. And they did come out, but I haven't heard from them since. So I share your frustrations when it comes to trying to get definitive answers to issues that you have.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, though, I mean, I think it's important to say that this is a conceptual master plan.
That's where I was
So,
going.
okay.
I was going to explain the process. Master plan is conceptual. It just kind of outlays what it's going to, what they're planning on, what it looks like. They haven't gotten to the final engineering, okay? So the next step would be, if they were to receive master plan, we would go to preliminary. That's when all the major engineering is done, okay? Including drainage, lighting, landscaping, and road construction, and so on. And then there's the final stage, and that's sort of just cleaning up and, dotting the i's and crossing the t's. But that is basically the procedure. So don't think that if we approve the master plan, everything's all done. No, these are the phases that they go through, because there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done. And of course, if the board has any questions or stipulations or conditions they want to impose, they're going to do that in conjunction with the master plan in the preliminary plan. But that is the process.
I see.
So
Okay.
this is where we start. So it's good to get any feedback from, the butters and so on now, so that as we move forward in the process, we can make sure that those items are addressed. And of course, again, when they get to preliminary stage, you're also invited back. In fact, we won't invite you because you have a right to come back, okay?
You don't have to invite me, I'll show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's just there's a big swamp there, and I'm worried about what's
Yeah.
going to happen to all that water if it can't go there,
Right.
come the other direction.
So, Mr. Chair, can I just add to this? So
Sure.
when we had the technical review committee meeting a few weeks ago, there was a very, very long discussion between Public Works and GZA, the engineers, about the drainage. So they're very well aware there's a problem out there. And so, the goal is to fix it. So they haven't done the heavy engineering yet. It is just conceptual, but the town, we know it's there. We know there's a problem. So moving forward, it has to be addressed.
And also, the applicant has to make sure that whatever drainage facilities are designed on the site, are contained on the site, they can't increase the amount of runoff going off the site. They have to maintain that those levels stay on the site. So this is where we are at this process. So it's good to know those issues moving forward, because obviously the board's going to keep a close eye on that. But we're going to also refer to the pros from Dover, the engineers and so on, who are providing all the analysis and the design work.
Sure. Just one more thing. They said, they mentioned when they were talking about the electrical area that the loudest noise would be the sound of I didn't hear what it was, some kind of truck beeping noise, I don't know. But I was just wondering if there was like any way of knowing how many decibels that is, or like.
I think they were referring to the CDL training, because that's what would be more backing up than anything.
Oh,
But-
yeah, yeah.
But if they're doing even on the construction end of it, the installation, and trench work and so on, you're going to hear beeping there too. But that's the furthest, I believe it's the furthest site away from the neighbors, am I correct? Yes.
Okay, so the driving area
Yeah.
the practice driving area, the loudest noise there is going to be truck backing up noises?
I would think so, and just the normal engines
Okay,
noise.
as long as it's not dynamite.
Yeah,
All right,
okay.
that's it for me, thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Seeing that there's no one, is there anybody in the queue, Mr. Modica? No one in the queue?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I'll restrict comments to the board. Mr. McDonald?
I know it's just master, I have a plan, one question on the, I guess it's a drainage. It's tough to read the maps, the schematics, but it looks like on page 2, the drop-off from the highest point on the property down to Scott Road is about 40 or 45 feet. Is that accurate? I'm just, from my head, I'm just trying to get a scope of the problem of trying to fix the drainage.
Actually, so before we respond to that question, can I just have Mr. DuPont just respond to just general drainage? Because it's my understanding that this project is not going to contribute to the Scott Road issue.
Certainly.
Sure. And it's only master plan, but as you can see on the plan, there are at least the outline of where the stormwater areas will go. And particularly if you look in the electrical yard, in the area that's near Scott Road, there's quite a bit of area shaded for stormwater management. And we intend to manage stormwater through a series of BMPs. There'll be detention basins, infiltration basins, swales, all kinds of other different storage devices, whether subsurface within crushed stone or open pond type storage. And those also will need to be approved and evaluated by the Department of Environmental Management based on the size of the project. In regards to the question about Scott Road, so looking at drawing 2, yeah, you can see there's an elevation about 185 that sort of mounds up along the edge of lot 127, and that does drop down. I've got an 11 by 17 here, so I can't count it, but it probably is something like 40 feet down to Scott Road. There is a significant slope over there.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. And since I'll close, the meeting is closed, so I'll restrict the comments and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the master plan for the Rhode Island Energy Training Center with the following conditions. 1, the applicants shall submit a lighting plan to the planning department that will be reviewed by the planning board at preliminary plan and shows all lighting on the property directed away from residential properties. Number 2, the applicant shall submit a landscape plan prepared by a registered landscape architect to be submitted for preliminary plan and will show the planned removal and replanting of trees on the property. And number 3, the applicant shall submit all hydrology reports, the stormwater plan, and the operations and maintenance plan at preliminary plan stage. And the planning board finds that the master plan is consistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan based on the findings of fact in Mr. Modica's memo dated August 22nd, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Frasches. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, the chair also votes yes, so the motion carries. We look forward to seeing you when you come for preliminary. Thank you. Item 7, Town Council recommendation, ordinance 24-24, an ordinance and amendment of the zoning ordinance relating to accessory structures and accessory dwelling units. The proposed ordinance prescribes the size of accessory buildings and, in accordance with the new state law, amends the ordinance relative to accessory dwelling units. Mr. Modica.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Our current ADU ordinance was adopted in 2021, and a couple of months ago, a new bill was passed at the state that made ours inconsistent with the new statute. And over the past few months, when word got out this bill was in the works, we've received a lot of inquiries about ADUs. So what this ordinance does, it brings our zoning into compliance by, essentially, we've taken the language of the statute and incorporated it here. Just one thing I wanted to point out in the ordinance on page 3, lines 9 through 15, those are the conditions or circumstances where an ADU can be placed on a property. So it just has to meet one of those three. It could be an owner-occupied property to accommodate family members with disabilities, a lot that's 20,000 square feet or more, or where the ADU would be within an existing footprint. It could be the house or a detached structure like a garage. One decision we did have to make regarding the size of the ADUs. The statute says a municipality may establish a maximum unit size. So to ensure the ADU is subordinate to the principal structure, we set that to be the minimum that is allowed, the lowest square footage, which is 900 square feet for a one-bedroom, 1,200 for a two-bedroom, or 60% of the existing structure's living area, whichever is less. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Kelly, or good?
Did we address accessory structures themselves?
I did not speak to that. So the first part, that's page 1, lines 14 through 16, is where we set a limit on accessory structures at 936 square feet, which is a general size of a 3-car garage. So we wanted to keep that parallel with the 900 so that you can build a garage, but then years down the road, let's say you can't build a 1,500 square foot accessory building, and down the road you want to convert that to an ADU, because we want the ADUs to stay at 900 for the one bedroom or 12 for the two bedroom. So we're trying to keep things proportional to the size of the house and not have people build an enormous structure that's bigger than a house. Say you have a cape or a little ranch or something like that.
Board have any questions? Mr. Scown?
What is the effective date of this? I thought I heard this evening it was July 1st.
It's in effect, the state law is in effect right now.
So can so we have an ordinance, and our ordinance is somewhat compliant with state law. Where it's not, for example, our ordinance says you can only have an ADU up to 800 square feet. I take the position that state law controls as to the 900 square feet for a one-bedroom, 1,200 square feet for a two-bedroom. So where it conflicts, we acknowledge the state law. But it's also, we have an opportunity now to make sure that we tighten it up and make sure that it's entirely consistent with state law.
What is the effective date of the state law, 7/1 or?
Yeah, 7/1. It was essentially effective upon
Upon passage.
enactment. Yeah,
That's what I was trying to get.
right.
I thought it said January 1st.
It could have, but the point is, they approved it, and these new bills for 2024, they approved in I think it was June, but some of them say they're effective January 1st. So, obviously, that's gonna, some things, people had applications in, they didn't even know the law was in existence. But this is something we need to pay attention to, is the point.
So we should be complying with the state law, that's what I'm.
Right, and again, I want to be clear for the record. I take the position that we are somewhat consistent, and where we're not, we consider the state law. And that area requirement is one area where we're not compliant. So we will accept those dimensions, and then you have the ability, you can't go any less than 900 square feet for a 1, 1,200 square feet for a 2. You can make them bigger, but that's up to you.
Mr. McDonald?
Ultimately, it's up to the council.
It's up to the council, but you're making a recommendation, and they rely on your expertise as planners.
I don't have an issue with this, particularly where it's bringing us into compliance with state law.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
It states here that an ADU is permitted by right under the following circumstances: an owner-occupied property as a reasonable accommodation for family members with disabilities. Above that, what's crossed out, it said permitted as a reasonable accommodation for family members with disabilities or who are 65 years of age or 62 years of age or older to accommodate another family member. Is that struck, or why isn't that in the language of?
Because we're including the state law. So that's what the new state law says.
So they get it by right if it's a family member with disability, but if it's a 62-year-old without disability, they have to get permission from the town, or? It doesn't say it's by right here.
So there's 3 different ways you can have an ADU by right. The first one that you just read.
Yep.
The second one is if your lot is 20,000 square feet or more, which means it doesn't have to be for a family member or with disabilities. And then the third one is where it's in an existing structure. So if you have a barn or a detached garage or an existing garage, you can put you can put an ADU in, notwithstanding that you don't have 20,000 square feet, or it's not for a family member. Now, there is another section later that says that family relationship shall not be considered. So somewhat contradictory, and I am kind of interpreting that as when it's established, you have to meet one of those three criteria. When that person moves out, especially with the number 1, the family member, then you cannot, you cannot consider family relationship.
So it can be rented to anybody?
Yes,
So
after it's established. Or if it's 20,000 square feet,
you can build a
Or-
two-family out of single, make a two-family out of a single family, in other words.
depending on the circumstances, yes.
Yeah, I mean, a 20,000.
Well, it's not a
square lot.
two-family, it's an ADU.
Yeah.
But
I know what's splitting
I get
hairs.
your point.
Yeah.
But it's an ADU, but there's not, unless you're establishing it under that first paragraph, there's also no requirement that it be
Family.
a family relationship.
What, without getting too into the weeds, what's the difference between an ADU and a two-family?
Well, the size. So the ADU has to be no more than 900 square feet, or 60%, 1 bedroom, and then 2 bedroom is 1,200. I mean, I get your point, and I
Right.
see the same things.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those bills that is encouraging more ways to house people.
I'm all set.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we send a recommendation of the town council that ordinance 24-24 is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, hold on for 1 minute. Do I have to open this up to the floor at all? No. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? second by Mr. Scown. Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Should we be amending this to say we want to comply with all state regulations regarding to this?
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. Should we be amending the motion to say that we want this to comply with all state regulations?
It does. I don't think you have to
I just
say.
want to make sure it's clear, that's all.
Well, I mean, the ordinance is what it's going to say. So if you think there's language in there that you need to talk about, we can do that, but the ordinance is going to say exactly what it says. And in my opinion, it complies with the new state law. I mean, you know, Glenn and I are always working through this language because, you know, we just talked about one thing that, you know, we don't know when that trigger happens, but we work through it on a case-by-case basis.
I have no problem with that, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Well, I'm just thinking if it's 60% of a 3,000 square foot house, you can do something 800 square feet.
It's whichever is less.
Whichever is less.
So 900 square feet could actually be reduced to something. If you have an 1,100 square foot ranch, in theory, you're only going to be able to build, well, no. 1,100, 550.
Close enough.
Oh, 60, I'm sorry, you're right. Lawyers don't do math.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh, not yet, not yet, not yet, hold on. Yeah. All in favor of this motion? Opposed? The chair votes yes, motion carries. Okay. Public comment? None. So I'll now, Maria. Motion by Ms. Frashett, seconded by me. No, seconded by Ken Bush. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, members.